recording on your phone and your skin never looks right, no matter what filter you throw on it, this video is for you. Especially if you're working with melanated skin, because most tutorials that we see on the app don't always cater to us. So this video is especially for you. And here's the truth, your phone ain't the problem, but that last video that you just watched from your favorite creator, they probably had it lit properly, probably color corrected it and graded it before you got to see the finished product. Today I figured, let me show you how to do some color correction on regular footage coming from your phone inside CapCut step by step. And not to worry, it's a beginner friendly tutorial. I'm actually going to explain what every setting means, because trust me, I remember when I started and I was moving and toggling and had no clue. Ultimately, I figured it out, never knew what the meaning of the settings were. Through trial and error, I figured it out. But I know that there are a lot of you out there who see creators with this amazing crisp footage and you're just like, how could I get that on my video? And you'll go watch a tutorial and it was probably a great tutorial, but the creator cannot necessarily resonate with melanated skin. They probably said, well, move the toggle to 5 here, move exposure to 2, and you went and you did it and you didn't look proper. So don't worry, I got you. Before I jump into the tutorial, I need you to know that color correction and color grading are not the same thing. So color correction is just really fixing what's off. Maybe your skin looks too dark, maybe it looks a little too orange. For the girlies, you'll understand when you're in Sephora or you're in wherever and you're looking for foundation and the person who's trying to match you doesn't necessarily understand your undertone and things like that. It's the same thing for color correction. Sometimes it's even things like not being able to see the details in the darker parts of your video. Color grading now, that comes after color correction, and that's when like you put like a filter or a mood on top of the color correction. Color grading just allows you to make the video warmer, cooler, and maybe just a little bit more dramatic depending on what you're going for. Think about it like this. First we clean up the space, then we decorate it. And in this tutorial, because I really wanted it to be beginner friendly, we're mainly just cleaning up the space. And just so you know, there is no magic formula. There are no magic numbers where I'm gonna say you automatically have to have 5 on saturation, 2 on tint, because everybody's settings are different and everybody's skin tone and lighting in their video is going to be completely different. But rest assured, by the end of this video, you're going to be able to take your footage from regular to upscale. So what I'm giving you is a starting pattern. We're going to make subtle moves and then we're going to see what changed, and then we're going to decide, do we kick it up a notch or do we put it back down? And we're not going to be doing nothing drastic just because you saw another tutorial and the person said move it up to 47. Listen, you just did your first try on haul. You just did your first day in the life vlog. I want you to be pleased with the piece of content that you're about to upload. So we're going to be taking it one small move at a time. Just so you know, I'm going to be using a video that I found on Pexel, and I just thought that it had the perfect colors that would allow me to show you at the before and after. And whether you're using desktop or whether you're using your phone to do the color correction, it works the same. The first thing you're going to need to do is import your clip. Once it's imported, you're going to drag it onto your timeline, and then you're going to focus your attention to the top and you're going to hit adjust. And if you're using another editing software such as DaVinci Resolve or maybe InShot, the buttons are probably somewhere else, but the basic idea is still the same. So the first thing we're looking at is exposure, and exposure just really controls how light or dark your clip looks. And most of the time, that's the reason why your clip looks dull instead of polished. The first thing you need to do before you start increasing or decreasing exposure levels, look at your clip and ask yourself, could I see this person's face properly? Could I see their eyes? Could I see the details? Or it could be that the image is way too bright and you can't even make out the person's face because they're starting to disappear. For melanated skin especially, I want to make sure that I'm not leaving the face too dark that I lose the details in the eyes, the skin, and the hair. But I also don't want to keep brightening the clip until I lose depth. I personally start small. So if I feel that the clip needs more light, I might increase by 5. Or if I feel like, whoa, the footage is way too bright because wherever I shot it, like the sun was doing way too much, then I'll decrease by 5 before I touch anything else. Okay, do I like the adjustments? Do I feel like, oh, it's too dark? And then at that point, I'm really just like minusing by 1 at a time or increasing by 1 at a time. And every time I change the number, I just look at the clip. Next up is temperature. And this one is one I feel beginners need to know. Sometimes we feel like, okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more saturation saturation to the skin when the whole time the problem is the light. All temperature does for the clip is move it between cooler and warmer. Cooler meaning like more blue, and warmer meaning like more orange and more yellow. So instead of staring at the numbers, I'm gonna need you to focus on the skin. So when you increase or decrease, don't look at the numbers, but look at the skin. Am I having a little bit more blues or am I having a little bit more orange? And notice, if you keep increasing the warm, you're gonna see how orange that skin is gonna look. And on the opposite side, if you keep pushing too much cool, you're gonna see how gray the skin looks. For melanated skin, just pay attention to your undertone. And that's the thing about undertone, because pushing warm the same amount doesn't give every skin tone the same results. And we're not out here trying to make everybody look orange in the name of looking warm. I suggest starting at +5 or -5 and adjusting if the clip needs it. And right under temperature is a setting called Tint. And this is another slider that most beginners skip. So remember this, temperature is blue versus orange and tint is green versus magenta. So if you're looking at your clip after you've done toggled enough with temperature, but you're still like, it still looks a little greenish, don't panic, just move tint slightly towards magenta. And if you're looking at your skin and you're like, oh my God, it looks too pink, or it just looks off in any other way, you're gonna wanna move that tint slider towards green. And this matters a lot, especially on melanated skin under mixed lighting. Look at it this way. It's like a room with daylight coming in and you have a lamp on at the same time. And sometimes that's when you see like a pink or a green that show up, and temperature can't fix that alone. So that's why we got to do a little bit of tint. So it's the same rule as everything else. Small moves, +5, -5, look at your clip and adjust as needed. Contrast, that controls the lighter or the darker parts of your video. Here's what I mean by if I increase the contrast, lighter parts of your video will get light. But at the same time, there are darker areas of your video that will also get light, and it'll sometimes just give your video like an extra pizzazz, a little zhuzh. Watch what happens when I take it too far. So you see now that the dark areas are almost losing every single detail and the video is just too harsh. And this matters especially on melanated skin because too much contrast will turn a shadow on the face, the hair, the clothing, I will just have you looking like a dark patch. Same rule applies. I will start at +5, and if the video already has enough contrast, then I'm not touching it. Next, we're moving over to highlights, and highlights are really just the brighter parts of the image. On your face, that could just be light reflecting from your forehead, your nose, your cheeks, kind of like how I look right now. Take, for instance, my space that I'm filming right now, my curtains are white, and I specifically chose them to be sheer white to allow the natural light to come in, but it also may appear a little bit too bright in the video. So I'm gonna have to slightly tackle the brightness, not always to adjust my appearance, but to adjust the appearance of the things in my surroundings. And I'm not trying to make things look bright because I already suffer with oily skin. So I'm gonna start with -5 or -10, and I'll look at the clip and adjust from there. This is especially useful for melanated skin, especially when the light is reflecting harsh off the skin while the rest of the face is already correctly exposed. We move over to shadows, and shadows are basically the opposites. They are the darker areas around your image. And this is equally important because if the exposure and the contrast are slightly off in your image, then this is where the details of the shadows start to disappear first. So if you feel like those areas are slightly too dark that you can't even see useful details, then you're going to want to slightly increase it. So if the areas that I mentioned are slightly too dark, which was the hair, the other side of the face, and possibly the background, just move it +5. And trust me, you're not going to want to go more than 5, because if you go more than 5, it's going to look gray and washed out. You're still going to want key areas in your video to look dark. The thing about it is you don't want to have to lose the details, and that's why you don't want to go too high. Next up is saturation, and all saturation does is control how strong the colors are. So watch what happens when I go all the way down. Now you see that all the colors disappear. So watch what happens when I push it too high. You see that everything becomes overly colorful, including your skin. And this is why it matters on melanated skin, because more saturation doesn't equal rich, velvety black skin. So when I'm taking a look at my video and I feel that, okay, my skin doesn't look too, it's not skin and it looks dull, the first thing I'm gonna do is touch the exposure and temperature. And if I feel like, okay, my skin is good, but I feel like the video still needs a little bit more color, I'll start with increasing the saturation by 5. And what you're gonna wanna do, particularly when you're playing around with saturation, pay attention to the reds and the oranges. If you feel like the clip has gone like a way too red or way too orange, it's because you've gone too high. So just start bringing it down. Moving over to sharpening. Sharpening just makes the edges and the details in your video just look more crisp, more defined. Trust me when I say that a little bit of sharpening will go a long way on your video, but when you play with it too much, your footage will just look over edited. So once again, slow moves. If you feel like you need to sharpen your video, start at +5, and honestly, I would prefer to have less sharpening than too much. I remember that sharpening can't put detail back into a video that was accidentally recorded blurry. If the detail was never there to begin with, sharpening won't help you. So if you want something simple to remember, lock this pattern down. Start with exposure. You're gonna ask yourself, is my clip too dark or is it too light? And then you're gonna move over to temperature and tint and just make sure that the color of the light is not making your skin look too orange, too blue, or too green. And then all you gotta do is check your contrast, your highlights, and your shadows. And once the light looks right, move over to saturation. And sharpening is the last thing you touch. So for the starting point, think small moves, +5, -5, max +10, -10. And remember that the numbers are not the goal, it's how your footage looks. The same order works no matter your skin tone, but if you've been struggling to have melanated skin look right in your videos, this is the order that fixes it. So now that you're done with color correction, then you can slap on color grading. So now we're gonna color grade, and I'm gonna use the same temperature slider as earlier. I'm just doing it on purpose instead of fixing anything. The key thing to remember here is that orange means more warm and more yellow, and cool means more blue. And when it comes down to color grading, it's all about giving your video that extra mood. Are you going for something dramatic? Are you going for something cinematic? So ultimately, you could skip this slider right here and go straight to CapCut's filter, pick whichever one you want, toggle the intensity, and you have the same results. And by doing so, that doesn't mean that the color correction that you did on your video was wrong. It's just that you're doing it on purpose because you want to apply an extra mood on top of your video. So for that next piece of content that you're about to record, once you get into post-production and you're on the adjust tab, don't move every slider just because it's there. So once you have your clip, go through the order of adjusting things. As I mentioned, you're going to want to do your exposure, you're going to want to do your temperature, your tint, your highlight, your shadow, your saturation, and your sharpening. Remember, small moves first. Always look back at your clips. There's no reason for you to be chasing somebody else's numbers. All this was done on CapCut's free version. Now, if you have the pro, then you'll just tick that little box with that purple diamond and it'll magically make everything perfect for you. But if you're on the free version, start with this pattern, one video at a time, and as you go, you're gonna take your footage from dull to excellent with just those small adjustments. And if this is one of the very few tutorials where you've actually seen somebody explain color correction versus color grading, especially on melanated skin, you're gonna wanna subscribe. More videos like this coming every single week. Continue to film your life. Go out there, film that day in the life, film that grocery haul. Don't think too hard about it. Post it, enjoy yourself in the process. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.